I feel like my allergies are acting up again for some reason, and it's September. It's not supposed to be like this. Somebody help me. I don't know. Hello, beautiful bookworms. My name is Katarina, and welcome to my channel. And today I am going to bring to you my September wrap up, which means all of the things that I read in September. So we have a comic series, and then we have books, and that's basically what I read in September. No mangas, pretty much, no mangas, and nothing else. It was not a great reading month comparing with August, where I read 22, I believe, books, which was overwhelming. But it was a nice month considering that some of the books were bigger than the others, so I will just introduce you to what I read and you will take conclusions by yourself. Okay, so the first thing that I read was the graphic novel, comic series, actually. It's not a graphic novel, it's a comic series. Was the comic series named Koda, and this is a comic series that has 12 volumes. I read, well, not volumes, these are called issues. I'm sorry, I'm still very bad at naming comic stuff, but I'm learning, okay? So, as I was saying, this is a series that has 12 issues and a series that I have read in its entirety in the month of September. And so it starts on the first issue, then it goes to the second one, as you can see, the third one, which is also very beautiful. They all are, in my opinion. The fourth one, the fifth, the sixth, which is a little bit meta, but whatever. The seventh, which is one of my favorite covers, actually. I find it very beautiful. The eighth, another one of my favorites. Ninth, which is completely psychedelic. 10th. 11th, which is gorgeous as well. And finally 12, which is my favorite, and of course it's because it has a book on it. I mean, who never? So Koda is a comic series written by Simon Spurrier and Matthias Bergara. And first of all, the art is very strange, very beautiful. I enjoyed it, although it's not one of my favorite arts ever. I do prefer some black and white, some dotted sort of artwork, but I really enjoy the coloring. I think that the colors are very alive and they portray the story beautifully. And so this is basically the story of this man that you see here. He is a bard and he lives in a high fantasy land, but after some sort of apocalyptic event. So think sort of Mad Max, in which you are searching for fuel, which in this case is magic, which is pretty much completely eradicated. Dragons are just skeletons in the middle of the ground. They speak, but they are pretty much dead. And there's magic, but it's very rare and it comes with a high price. You have to trade a lot of stuff, and he is a bard, and he, instead of singing, he basically writes a journal to himself and to the love of his life, which is a plot point of the story that I am trying not to get into because I don't want to spoil you. And he has a pentacorn, which is a unicorn with 5 horns. And this is so very funny. Basically, the unicorn consumes magic in order to properly function, but every time that he consumes a lot of magic, a specific type of magic, in a way, he gains like one of the horns, and so he's a pentacorn, and he's evil, and he pretty much always swears, and he's very strange, but he's very cute as well, and I really, really like it. So basically, the story of this is that you have a land, a high fantasy land that is sort of decimated. A lot of people are living in like small places, small cities, fighting to survive, trying to find the remains of magic that they have to protect themselves. And there's different races, there's a lot of racism. Some people try to live in the old ways, but it doesn't work anymore. For instance, our bard hates the word quest because he feels like it's something of the past and it's something that is stupid and should not happen. And this is basically a character construction in which we see that he's not that good of a person and he's always caring about himself and the one that he likes, but mostly himself. And then there's character development and there's other characters and there's a beautiful story, and I really did enjoy it. And because he's the narrator and he's always writing in his diary, there's also a very big component of someone narrating a story to you, which is also very interesting and one of the things that I really enjoyed reading about this comic issue. And I do believe that the paperback trades are already coming out. I've seen the first one. I don't know if there's more, but if you want, this is a very, very interesting high fantasy series. I really enjoyed it. And I think that the art is cool, the story is nice, the relationships are fun, and I think that you'll probably enjoy it. Although it is also a little bit sad. And there's also some trigger warnings because there's some violence shown on page, but you know what I think about that. It's normal, it's fantasy, it's comics, so I don't feel like it's that aggressive. After reading that graphic novel series, I basically read one of the things that gave me, or I spend most of the month reading, which was Outlander, and I am presenting 2 books because these 2 books in Portuguese are only one. So you can see the size of the supposed one book. It is gigantic. And this is basically the 6th Outlander novel. In Portuguese it is divided in 2 parts, but it's the 6th one, A Breath of Snow and Ashes. And so this is part 1, and this is part 2. I had to use my boob there to put it up because Jesus. And these are very big. Obviously, you probably know Outlander because there's a TV show out there. If you don't know, it's about this woman and she is transported back in time, 200 years back in time, and she meets a Scottish man, she falls in love, and then all of the tragedy things that occur to her and her family and the next generations and whatever. And I really enjoy the historical fictions part of this because I find it very interesting to understand how certain events came to be, events that I don't know a lot about. In this book, for instance, we are talking about the American Revolution of 1776. Yeah, I think so. Doesn't matter. I'm really bad with dates. That's why I'm not an historian. But as I was saying, this is very interesting in order to know some of the historical events that actually happen. I really enjoy the relationships between the characters, but most of the time I read this as a guilty pleasure because all of the tragedies that happen, I mean, sometimes it's hard to kind of see it as something that could actually happen, which if you're pulling from, obviously this is a romanticized story, and there's time traveling, which doesn't exist supposedly, but if you're pulling from an historical fiction sort of thing, most of the things here should be plausible, but some are really not. But I don't care. I just read this for enjoyment and to know how the characters are going, basically, because I want to know. The 7th volume, parts 1 and 2, are already out in Portugal, and I have to get to them. I don't have them. I actually got the 2nd part of the 6th volume only this month, and I got it and I read it immediately because I finished this one. But yeah, it's a nice one, but I mean, if you don't like romance and if you don't like historical fiction, this is not for you. Totally. It's not. I just read this because it's my guilty pleasure. And I'm fine with that, but most of you maybe don't enjoy this. So I will not recommend this because I will only recommend this to people that actually would enjoy this sort of thing, which normally I would believe no. You know, I don't know. Guilty pleasures, I enjoy it. I don't care. It was fun. I can't spoil it because it's the 6th one if you want to read them. If not, I don't know. Yeah, that's all I have to say. This is getting very complicated. Although I do have to say, I expected more from this ending. It was slightly heartbreaking, but not as much as I thought it was going to be. And I was counting on Outlander to be heartbreaking. If I can't count on Outlander to be heartbreaking, I can't count on anything. I was lied to, but the ending was nice. Not as nice as I wished it had been, but, you know, that. Then I read the last books that I read this month, and those two were two from the same series, sort of, and I might as well show you. I read the first and the second volumes of the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski, so The Last Wish and The Sword of Destiny, and these two are the beginning of the Witcher series, but they are supposed to be short story collections, and they are short story collections, and only in the third volume does the story actually actively progresses and begins and whatever. But I do really think that starting with short stories to actually get to know your characters better and present them to you was a good decision. I think Andrzej Sapkowski, I don't know if he wanted to do a series or not, but even if he did want to do a series, this was, in my opinion, the best way to start. It hooks your readers right away because you're following all of your main characters and you don't have a lot of fillers. I do believe that I only read one filler story. The rest was important for the plot, or at least to get to know the characters. And they're short stories, so they're short. You can read one every day or two every night or wherever you prefer. I read them fairly fast. And then you have the rest of the story and you already know everyone and their motives and their stuff. And I have to say, I love this visual of the Portuguese stories. This is supposed to be Geralt. This is supposed to be Yennefer. And if you don't know, The Witcher is basically... I don't know the series, I only read these two, okay? But supposedly The Witcher is, we're following Geralt, and he's a witcher, which is supposedly someone that is paid to kill monsters. In this universe that Sapkowski created, monsters are real, they do bad things, and witchers are supposed to be done with them, basically. But he has some moralities and some codes that don't allow him to actually kill every monster. For instance, he doesn't kill dragons or sentient monsters, so it's kind of a bit confusing. There's a lot of morality in these stories. It takes a lot from Grimm's fairy tales, for instance, and other fairy tales that are adapted into Sapkowski's world. There's a lot of swearing, which I love, of course. There's a lot of on-page violence and some descriptions that could be considered gory or not, whatever, of bleeding and injuries and people dying. So yeah, but I don't really think that's very aggressive. I think it's actually, for the time that it was written, which was a long time ago, it's actually very fun and very nice to read. The first one I read, The Last Wish, I enjoyed it, but I was not certain if I loved the characters and the series. And then I read the second one, and I was hooked, completely hooked. And I am reading this because of the Netflix series that is supposed to come out in the end of this year, and I really want to watch it because I feel like the cast of actors that they chose to play the characters are very on point, and I would really love to see them acting out some of these stories. I have heard some of the booktubers that have already read this saying that from the trailer you could see that there were scenes from the first two books and half of the third one. So that's where I want to get before the Netflix series comes out. But if I can read them all, I mean, I am really enjoying this. And although Geralt sometimes makes me really mad at him because, dude, what are you doing? I really enjoy the characters. I have to say that I really like Yennefer. And she is a bitch, but I think she has some reasons. Some we already know, some I believe that we will know. And I ship them, which I shouldn't because they're very toxic for each other. But I mean, it's a nice relationship. And yeah, we get to meet Ciri in this book as well. And I don't want to spoil you. It's very interesting. I don't know how to talk about this series because supposedly it only starts in the third book, but these two already can have spoilers for characters. So I'm just going to say, if you like high fantasy and if you like cool main characters, just read this and then talk to me about it, because I can spoil you without wanting, and it's not fun. So yeah, that's all for my September wrap up. As you can see, I haven't read a lot. I have read in total 3 books, since the Outlander book is supposed to be only 1, and then 1 comic book series of 12 issues, which is not a lot because it's very fast to read. But as a whole, because I've been reading a lot, I feel like it was nice. I really enjoyed it. I was really in the mood to read everything that I read, so I didn't feel like I was being forced to read them, and it was fairly enjoyable to read these for this month. So that's all for this video. If you guys enjoyed this, leave a like or subscribe, and tell me down below if you've read any of these books, if these are some of your favorite series, if they're not, if you're considering picking up Koda, since it's very interesting and very fun. And yeah, that's going to be all for today. So happy readings to you all. Bye!